Clara had always loved the quiet of living alone. The stillness of her small house on the edge of town brought her comfort, a sense of peace she rarely found elsewhere, but that comfort began to crack the night she first heard the footsteps. At first, they were soft, almost polite, pacing across the floor above her bedroom. She froze, heart hammering, straining to hear more. Perhaps it was the old house settling, she thought, letting the imagined sounds lull her back to sleep. But the sounds returned, more distinct, deliberate. Night after night, they followed the same pattern. Right foot, left foot, a pause, then back again. Always measured, always methodical, and always somehow empty. At first, Clara dismissed it as imagination, exhaustion, or old floorboards creaking. But when she began timing the steps, she realized they moved from room to room, tracing paths no one should have known. She would lie in bed, trying to calm her racing thoughts, and feel them move in rhythm with her own pulse, echoing around the house. She tried speaking into the darkness, calling out her own name, daring the intruder to reveal themselves, but the response was only silence, or so she thought. That first whisper came softly, curling around her ear, "Clara." Her blood ran cold. She pulled the covers over her head, convinced it was a dream. But morning always brought the same reality: empty rooms and a house that seemed completely ordinary. Unable to ignore the phenomenon, Clara began documenting the events. She kept a journal, noting each night's occurrences, the rhythm of the steps, the patterns of the whispers. Sometimes, fragments of words reached her consciousness. Watching, "Come here." But they dissolved before she could grasp them. Her sleep became fractured, punctuated by sudden awakenings and cold sweats. The once comforting solitude of her home became oppressive. Objects seemed slightly displaced in the mornings, doors left ajar, a chair tilted as if someone had leaned against it. Clara tried rational explanations, but the logic faltered when she saw faint footprints in the dust. Bare, damp and fleeting, disappearing by the next day. One night, Clara decided to confront the presence. She stayed awake, sitting on the sofa, eyes wide in the darkness. Midnight came, and with it, the footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing in the silence. She called out, voice shaking, "Who's there? Show yourself." The steps stopped. Silence enveloped her, thick and suffocating. Then came the whisper, closer, more insistent, "You shouldn't have stayed up." Panic rose in her chest. She wanted to flee, but her body felt heavy, anchored to the spot as if the house itself had taken hold. She tried reasoning, pleading, but the presence was patient, observing, feeding off the terror that had grown steadily over the weeks. Over the following days, Clara searched the house for any rational explanation. She inspected every room, checking doors and windows, yet found nothing. No intruder, no evidence of anyone else living there. And yet, each night, the footsteps returned. They circled her, tracing the layout of the house with unnerving familiarity. The whispers became more intelligible, phrases forming briefly before fading. Lonely ones are easy to find. The quiet invites us. Clara's journal began to fill with these fragmented warnings, each one amplifying her fear. She realized that the house was not merely haunted by sound. It was alive in some incomprehensible way, reacting to her presence, to her fear, and to her solitude. Driven by a mix of terror and curiosity, Clara discovered a hidden door behind a closet in her bedroom, a place she had overlooked countless times. Her hands trembled as she turned the handle and revealed a narrow crawl space. The air inside was colder, heavier, carrying a damp, musty scent. It felt as though the darkness itself was watching her, pressing in with patience and intent. She didn't enter. She couldn't. But she felt the presence's focus sharpen, waiting for her to cross the threshold, to give it permission. Her fear was both a barrier and a lure, a cruel paradox she could neither resist nor escape. Weeks passed, and Clara attempted to ignore the nightly footsteps, trying to regain some semblance of normalcy. But the presence adapted. It moved silently through the house during the day, subtle hints that it was there, a chair slightly tilted, the faint scent of cold air on her neck, shadows bending unnaturally. Sleep remained elusive. Every creak of the floor, every shifting shadow, became a reminder that she was never truly alone. She realized that it didn't merely haunt the house. It haunted her, tied to her fear, feeding off her isolation. The footsteps were patient, the whispers relentless. She could run, but she could not hide. The breaking point came one stormy night. Lightning flashed, illuminating the interior in harsh, fleeting glimpses. The footsteps were deafening in their intensity, circling her relentlessly. Clara tried to scream to leave, but every attempt felt futile, as if the house itself resisted her escape. In a moment of clarity, she realized that the footsteps followed her no matter where she went. They were part of her, inseparable from her fear. Even if she left the house, they would continue, patient and unyielding, waiting for her in any quiet corner she tried to claim as safe. Unable to bear the terror any longer, Clara fled the house. She moved to a small apartment across town, hoping to leave the nightmare behind. For a few weeks she believed she had escaped. The apartment was safe, mundane, ordinary. Then, one night, she heard it again. Soft footsteps behind the walls, circling her room. She pressed herself against the bed, listening, frozen with the realization that distance could not sever the connection. The presence had followed her. It had adapted, learned, and endured. There was no escaping the footsteps. Clara's life became a quiet terror. Every night, the footsteps circled her, whispering, patient, persistent. They would always follow, always wait, and always remember. She could not lock them out, could not reason with them, could not ignore them. And in the deepest moments of her fear, she understood the truth: the lonely are never alone. The footsteps would never cease. They were eternal, patient, and inevitable, shadowing every heartbeat, every step, every breath. Clara had learned too late that solitude carries a price, and the price is the unseen presence that walks endlessly behind you, waiting.